The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly taken its toll on everyone, including our seniors. Now that winter is here, that can also pose a lot of challenges for our seniors. How should we best help those in our community most vulnerable who need assistance? Joining me now to discuss this is retired Lethbridge pastor Abe Locke, who's a senior himself. Abe, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Abe, what are some of the biggest challenges that winter presents for a lot of our seniors?
Well, I think there's a number of things that winter presents. Number one, the sidewalks, the roads, everything gets a little slippery. Number two, a lot of seniors still love to drive. Getting out in the car feels a little insecure and dangerous for them. And so what happens is they stay home a lot more, and then loneliness sets in. And unless somebody is willing to give them a hand in that, winter creates a bit of a problem for them. And loneliness is an issue. And I think that's where a lot of us who have the abilities need to get involved in their lives.
You know, I know some seniors still have to get out there and shovel the snow. My mother-in-law is a fine example, 79 years young. But sometimes that can be a bit of an issue, and that can also be dangerous at the same time, right?
That can be very dangerous. You see, Hal, to me, there are some issues here. I know that we often talk about the church getting involved in things like this and helping our seniors. Well, my question is, who is the church? You and I are the church. And I think too often we see the church as a building or our leadership people. And a couple of Sundays ago, we had an incredible message from one of our pastors talking about the ministry belongs to the people. And we, the people, are the church. So how can we help these seniors during the winter months? I think most of us probably know of seniors struggling. We shouldn't look to the church to set up a program, Hal. I think we are the church, and therefore we can set up our own programs. We can look after some of these seniors. We can drive them to church. I know in our church, I know a number of people that go and pick up seniors in the winter particularly, and they'll take them to church with them. Now, I know that during COVID, that's been a bit of a challenge, and so we can talk about that as well. But I really would like to come back to the fact that you and I are the church. And so I think the responsibility biblically belongs to us. We shouldn't look anywhere else.
Yeah, so when you see your neighbor in need, who may especially be a senior, or other seniors in senior centers who need that hand, we should be willing, like you said, as the church, give people a helping hand. But how does an older person know when it's actually time to hang up the shovel and maybe let somebody else do the snow plowing and the snow shoveling?
Well, I know for myself, I live in a condo. And by the way, that leads to an issue as well. More and more of our seniors, Hal, are living in condos or living we happen to live in a ground level condo, not a high rise. And so I could be shoveling. But because it's a condo, I have monthly fees that go into that. And like, for example, this morning early, the guys were out here taking care of all of my snow. So I don't have to think about that anymore. And I think there are a lot of seniors that are living places like this, so it's not as big an issue anymore. But I know a good friend of mine who still lives in a house. He has a regular fella from his neighborhood, a young fella who wants to make some money. And he simply has hired him to take care of all snow shoveling. And again, I think if we realize this, we know the people that are living in houses and need their sidewalks shoveled and their driveways shoveled. We need to get involved in that and help them out. And if we have, like I have a lot of grandchildren in their area, if we have grandchildren that we can hire to help with this, I think that's a great idea as well. It's something, we are the church. And so it's something that we can do. We don't need to wait for a program from the church.
Abe, let's touch base on the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's really impacted our seniors. With the current restrictions, it's a real challenge to be able to visit people in long-term care facilities. Do you think churches should maybe consider setting up teams to either take turns phoning or connecting via Zoom to make sure that seniors get some sort of a visit?
Well, again, Hal, I want to say, who is the church? We are the church. And sometimes these things need help. organization from church staff or something like that. But on the other hand, I think we can also, on our own, do this kind of stuff. Now, I know that in our church, we did something particular at the beginning of this COVID, and apparently it is still going strong. The church organized a number of people who had the time and who were willing to phone. And then we divided the church totally and gave the names and phone numbers to these people. And then they would call. Every so often, they would call just to be in touch. So, yes, I think that's a good plan. On the other hand, I happen to also be a small group leader, and we have a lot of small groups. So I think the responsibility of the small group leader could take care of that as well. Keep in touch with the people that are in your group. And a lot of them are young people. That's fine. You can still be in touch. I happen to have a more senior number of people in my group. So I make it a point to try and call them now and then. And of course, the other thing that we did have, we had a number of people in a senior's home that were still really with it, but they didn't like to drive or come out, especially in the evenings. So I took part of my group and I went to a certain home where these people were, and I did the Bible studies at the home so that they didn't have to move, and we did it in the afternoon because most of these people could come. So there are ways that we can help these people not have to move out and yet be involved and have contact weekly.
When people feel lonely and isolated, sometimes they fall into a self-pity trap. Any advice for seniors on how to keep a positive outlook on life?
Well, that's a challenge because there are certain people who are more assertive. For them, it's easier because they'll get on the phone, they'll make contact, they'll do that themselves. And that's a very positive thing to do. Don't sit back and wait for everybody else. But then there are those who are quiet and reserved. I would encourage them anyway. Get involved. You also have time. You also have a telephone. Don't wait around for somebody else to do it. And if you have someone, for example, my wife and I help at a thrift store 2 or 3 days a week. Well, we're still able. So that really helps, though, especially during COVID, because the thrift store, well, it closed for a while at the beginning, but then, stores were allowed to be open with restrictions. So we were allowed to go and help. That makes a major difference. And like you said before, if people can't get out, that's more of a challenge. But I have a good friend whose mother was kind of quarantined in her home, but they were allowed to have a bubble. And so she and her brother were the bubble part. They went weekly to see their mother to make sure that she didn't get too lonely. So, we can do that if we're vaccinated or whatever.
Now, Abe, driving can be extremely difficult, especially in the winter months, so a lot of seniors simply don't go out. They feel like a shut-in. Do you think there's maybe an opportunity that we can maybe get groceries for some of our seniors, even drive them to the store, or maybe even join them for a mall walk, take them to the mall?
I think we can definitely do that. And I've seen it happen. I know that some of my friends do that for their parents. And people do want to get out. And unfortunately, some of them want to drive so badly that they actually do get out in their cars, and it's not a good scene out there in the roads. But I think we definitely can do that. But again, I come back to the fact that who is the church? We are the church. We can look out for these situations, especially somebody like my wife and myself, for example. We're on in age a little bit, but we're still able to help. We're still able to drive. We're still able to do those things. We know of people our ages and older, and I think we need to make that contact without waiting for, let's say, the physical church, the leadership of the church, to do something about that. We can lay hold of that.
You know, Abe, it's always great when young people make time to help seniors figure out their computers and their cell phones. Now, the interesting part seems to be that when this happens, there's often an exchange of sorts with seniors maybe sharing some stories and wisdom with the younger generation. And there's that solid connection there, isn't there?
You know, I used to work with youth back in Calgary as a ministry. We deliberately set up these kinds of things with the seniors in our church. We took the names of these people, we would get in touch with them, we would plan a visit, and then we would take a number of our youth to their place, and we would spend time with them and have a visit with them just to visit, just to get across communication between youth and seniors, because seniors have a lot to offer. And I think sometimes we miss out on that by kind of setting them off to the side a little more than what we should. And I think it's a great idea. That kind of thing probably needs to be planned by the youth sponsors in the church. That's something that our youth will probably not do on their own. So I think that's where leadership can really get involved and do some planning and have that communication. I think that communication is essential for both the youth and for our seniors.
Now, another area where we could perhaps help some of our seniors with is small home repairs or maybe even help change a tire, for example. What are your thoughts on those?
Wow, I think that's a great possibility. For example, I have a couple of good friends who are mechanics, and all I need to do is make arrangements for these seniors with them. I mean, for me, I'm not a mechanic, so I can't help much, but I do know people who can. And again, because we are the church, we can make those arrangements and we can help. I remember the one church that I was in British Columbia, we were pastoring. We had what we called a help board in the foyer. And people that needed help would come and write on there what they needed. They would put their name and phone number on. Other people who had the ability would look at the board every Sunday and say, oh, okay, here's something where I can go and help. It was a great plan. And it was on the board in the foyer in the church. And so people communicated that way, and a lot of help happened, not only to the seniors, but to single moms and people like that as well. I thought it was a great idea. It worked well.
Abe, any final thoughts on what we can do to better serve our seniors in our communities?
Let's remember what the Bible's definition of church is. In Romans 12, in Ephesians 1, it talks about being the body of Christ. And when you think of your body and you think of missing a finger or something, it's incredible how that impacts your life. And so if we think of that as the church, we are the church. I think we need to be more cognizant of every finger, every thumb, every senior, every younger person. We need to be cognizant of the body and be looking out for one another. Because we look at Revelation chapter 7, for example. In the final end, it says, when we get to eternity, there will be people from every tribe and nation sharing and fellowshipping together. That needs to be our goal down here as well. And I think with the technology we've had in our churches, we've seen that happen. I know in our church, we have had people worshiping with us on a Sunday morning from countries all over the world. What an exciting thing to have happen. And to me, that would be our goal.
Abe Blanc is a retired Lethbridge pastor, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Abe.
Take care. God bless, Hal.
You as well. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks for watching.